Yes, everyone, good afternoon, or it will be until about 8 o'clock tonight when I think it's probably going to get a little bit shit. But welcome and cheers for joining us. Going to talk a little bit today about what's going on at United. Obviously, there's some issues, there's some fixtures, there's some contract news. So I thought just mangle it all together in one video and have a chat with you lot, see how your afternoon's going, and anyone's got any questions that they want to waffle on with, we'll get into those as well. So, obviously, there's a lot to think about in the league at the moment. There's injuries universally, actually. I think this season could be defined by whichever side manages injuries the best, and that would suggest Manchester City, wouldn't it? But it could go down to who manages the injuries the best, because it does seem like there's an increased number of injuries. And obviously people have the theories on that. There's no way of getting evidence to back up on any of those theories. They will just be theories because no one's going to ever be able to do a control group of professional athletes that, play a controlled number of minutes and run a certain distance within those. So it will only be theories and not actual evidence, unfortunately, despite what some people will claim. But there is obviously a ton of injuries. United are suffering, Newcastle suffering, Spurs are suffering, City are suffering. There's a lot of injuries around the league at the moment, and there's a lot of big fixtures coming up for United. And it definitely feels at this stage like every game is just a must-win. Obviously, Bayern Munich at home tonight, away games to Liverpool and West Ham, not exactly easy, and then a home game with Aston Villa. 4 games which I honestly don't know if he loses all 4, with a couple of them being like potentially embarrassing losses. If he loses all 4, I don't know if he survives. And that's not to say I agree with that, because I don't. But that would be pretty catastrophic. United need to win some of those games. I don't think we're going to see United win all 4 of those games, and if we do, wow! But I wouldn't even be putting a pound on the possibility of all of that lot. I don't think. Like I said, get your questions in, get your comments in. Make sure to like the video and subscribe if you are new, and I'll get through all of this lot as we can. So, huge fixtures, these 4, not just for the future of Erik Ten Hag, but actually for everything that's going to unfold in the league. If you win those league games, you're in a great position. If you lose those league games, you lose ground on all of those around us, including Aston Villa, which I think is a must-not-lose game. I think at Old Trafford in a couple of weeks. The game against Bayern Munich tonight, obviously there's a third party that's got a hand in what goes down. Copenhagen-Galatasaray game. If there is a definitive result one way in that game, United win to go into Europa or lose to here's what you could have won. Wouldn't put it past United to actually beat Bayern tonight in some sort of a mad performance, really energetic, high energy performance, and then there be a result in the other fixture, which means that we are Europa League bound. Nice. By January, this United side is going to have its head in the right place, regardless. There needs to be signings identified, dealt with, preempted, signed off, and just ready to push the button on over the next 2 or 3 weeks. So come the 1st of January, we don't start work, we finalise our work and we bring those lads in so they can have an impact on the second half of the season. Because if you wait, you end up, fucking signing a Gallo on the 31st, don't you? But yeah, we have to have our transfers in order. If their players are going, and it honestly smells like Varane and Sancho could be 2 of the ones that are going. If they're going, okay, fine. Don't need to make a fuss about it. Let them go, but make sure we're bringing in those replacements. Because we really need to kick into gear. Now, we don't find ourselves in a horrendous position. If we somehow manage to scrape through the Champions League group into the knockout stages, you go, okay, sort of mission accomplished somehow. And if we find ourselves hovering just outside the top 4 with a couple of decent wins over the next few weeks, you go, okay, we're within touching distance of that. And we haven't played well more than once. It's not a horrendous position to be in, but we're really going to have to start seeing some performance and some identity come to the fore in those games, because we've got here, it feels like, by luck and by feeling around in the dark rather than by strategy and planning, in my opinion. So I would like to see that in the second half of the season. I would like to see stability. I would like to see game plan, and I would like to see performance, because ultimately I think you can win games without performance, but I think on a long timeline you end up getting where your level of performance. Does that make sense to everyone? I think you will end up getting the results that your performance dictates. Like, if you're playing well, you will get good ones. You will get good results. And if you're playing badly, I think you'll get bad results, is the simplest way I could stick that. Does everyone sort of know what I'm jabbing at there a little bit? In terms of those injuries, obviously we've been crippled with some massive injuries to key players, and I saw a really interesting tweet from someone last night that went through the sort of default starting 11 from last season. And the default starting 11 from last season, you forget, was bolstered by the loans of Weghorst and Sabitzer. They're not here. So you've lost Weghorst, you've lost Sabitzer. Whether or not you think Weghorst was a great signing or not, and obviously he wasn't for his goals, but he was someone that was able to hold the ball up, and he was someone that was able to press from the front. Not quickly, but he did. He put pressure on people. So you've lost him. You've lost Sabitzer, who actually played a hell of a lot in central midfield for us last season, as well as Casemiro, as well as Eriksen. Those are three starting midfielders that we no longer have access to. So I think that when you're looking for what's gone wrong for us this season, it's all that. And then I thought our best player last year probably was Lisandro Martinez, and he's just not been seen, man. So I think it's one of them. We've had so many missing, it's massively impacted us. Casemiro could be back around Christmas. Martinez was back in training yesterday. I think him actually taking to the field will be a long time off, and I wouldn't want to rush him either, because I would like him back permanent rather than back for a game and back out for another 6 weeks or so, something like that. Mount coming back could be an interesting one. Tonight's game against Bayern is a potential return date for him if he does come back. Even with the injuries that we've got, I would expect it to be off the bench rather than starting. I honestly don't know what's going to happen with Varane. It feels like the Sancho situation where the only resolution is to get rid of him. It doesn't feel like there's any sort of explanation forthcoming. It's just like they're not having each other, and that's that, which is it's a bit of a shame, but it feels like that's probably the case, unfortunately, at the moment. Donny van de Beek, what is going on with him? United have been absolutely desperate in midfield. We have a midfielder that Ten Hag trusted at one point, and he can't get a sniff either. It's just mental. Surely he's a certainty to leave. Surely. And then we have our issues surrounding the tactics. Even when you have one issue dealt with, which we thought we did in the summer by signing a striker, even when one issue sort of gets resolved, another pops up. McTominay is our top scorer. He took over from Casemiro, which tells you the forward line just is not at the races. But the strategy of the team is in the mud at the moment. We are rudderless. We are taken to the field, it seems. I'm sure it's not the case, but it seems the case. We're taken to the field without any idea how we're going to play from 1 week to the next. And I think to start scoring goals, you've got to create chances. To start creating chances, I think you've got to have a level of competency in your possession. To have a level of competency in your possession, I think you've got to pick the right players. And look, Scott McTominay is good for some stuff. He ain't good for a possession-based team. Same with Harry Maguire. And I think that's a fundamental problem that exists within the football club at the moment. And as Lisandro Martinez comes back, who is going to partner Harry Maguire? Sorry, who's going to partner Lisandro Martinez? Is it going to be Harry Maguire? Because there is basically no one else. Unless Varane's just said, I'm not playing with Maguire, which I can't imagine. I'm not playing Maguire, but I'll play once Lisandro's back. I can't imagine that's the case. He seems to like Johnny Evans as a left-side centre-half. He seems to like Luke Shaw as a left-side centre-half. He seems to be playing all sorts of people as a left-side centre-half. but only Herrera as a right side centre half. So even if we just get Lissandro back, it won't fix what we're trying to do, because we still need someone to play on the right, which I think will be our first signing of the summer, so winter transfer window. Who that is, I actually have no idea. No idea whatsoever. I mean, any of you lot? What's the name that you think we're going to bring in? Todibo seems to be getting spoken about a hell of a lot. Think there's anything in that? Our shape is all over the place, and I think that's related. The ability to build out from the back is gone, and the structure of that seems to change week in, week out. Early on in the season, we was looking at, we're trying to do this, and now I actually don't fucking know what we're trying to do. The starting 11 isn't consistent selection, but returning starters hopefully starts to change that. There is no set goal in possession for United. They don't work it to an area to switch. They don't look to overwhelm and overload. They don't look to create chances in a channel to check back. Like, I cannot identify what Manchester United are trying to do. And I like to think, when I'm analysing a game, I look at a few things. I look at how chances are created. So every single shot in a game, how did that come about, for and against? That's the first thing that I look at. Then I look at how do they build out from the back, and then how do they transition. And once you've got those things, you basically understand how a team plays football. Because the other shit, just like recycling possession and stuff like that, doesn't tell you fucking anything about anything. But if you look at those things, how a team creates chances, concedes chances, plays out from the back, and how they transition both ways, then you have a bit of a clue about how this team is going to play. And with Manchester United at the moment, all of those can be sort of categorised as badly. How do we play out? Badly. How do we create chances? Fucking badly. One of the biggest ways that we created chances, like when you look at the Chelsea game, was pressing from the front. Okay, we're going to press from the front. What does that mean for midfield? James says, would love Todibo. Dumfries. Todibo, I think, makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. I think he's probably top on the list. Sitpam Handler says, Todibo ain't all that. United standards are in the floor. I'm going to have to disagree. Ben Kelly says, haven't seen any United manager since LVG have a way of playing consistently. Don't agree. I think Jose had a way of playing with the ball against smaller opposition, and then without the ball mostly against the bigger opposition. And I think if you go back and watch how we played, especially there was some moments from Mkhitaryan and Lukaku kind of days where we actually played some genuinely high-level football. And we also stank the place out with some really fucking boring, cowardly performances as well under Mourinho. I think under Ole, and I said this a lot of the time, like, our third man run ability under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was fucking elite. Highlighted by the sheer number of 5-goal plus winning margins that we had, which was more than the rest of the managers post Fergie combined. It was, we give out some absolute Slapovic's, and we also had a way of playing off the back foot under Ole as well. And what's interesting is when you look at that winning run of Ole, I didn't think it was a fluke. People thought it was a fluke. I didn't think it was a fluke because it was repeatable, and it was the same team. It was the same team playing the same way. And we had a dogleg midfield three, which was Matic, Herrera, and Pogba. Now, maybe that started to fall apart once you bring a Bruno into that, because Bruno's going to play in the Pogba role, and Pogba can't play in the Herrera role, and Herrera can't play in the Matic role. You need someone that is a dedicated sort of anchor, destroyer, someone that can take the ball off the back four, move the ball up the pitch, but he knows he's the defensive anchor of that team. Then you need a pair of legs, and that's Ander Herrera. And those legs can also sit back and become a number 6, but he's got the intelligence to push on and actually activate things in the final third, and he is just going to do 14k a game for you. And then you have your creative outlet, and the creative outlet in that midfield three was Paul Pogba, and it worked. When Paul Pogba stopped working was when you asked Paul Pogba to be a box-to-box number 8, because that's not his game, or you ask him to be a number 6, because that's not his game. He's a creative midfielder, and you need legs around him, and if you get legs around him, you get a good player out of him. And then you actually look at what the defence was, and it was Phil Jones for about 10 of those 14 games, I think. Who was the other one? I can't remember off the top of my head who his partner was, but Phil Jones was integral to that. Why was Phil Jones integral to that? Because, to give him some credit, one, he stayed fit for that period, but also Phil Jones was actually a good ball playing defender. Phil Jones could play out. Phil Jones could put a pass into midfield. Phil Jones could take the ball under pressure. And that did change and essentially unravel and evaporate. I can't remember who was next to him. But there was a system and there was a style of play with what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was trying to do against teams where United would be expected to win. They would go out and they would play as a team that was expected to win. And then opportunities like Etihad away, Anfield away, Parc des Princes, PSG away, we might have to adapt it, play off the back foot, rope it open a little bit, and then use the assets that we've got on the counter, like Marcus and that, to be able to win games. But we could do it. Was it Smalling? It may have been Smalling. And again, Chris Smalling can't play out. Like, Chris Smalling's one of the worst passes I've ever seen of a footballer in my fucking life. And he looked like he was going to dislocate his hip trying to play out sometimes. But no, I genuinely saw what we were trying to do under Ole, and then you lose. You lost Herrera, I think, that summer, and Phil Jones got injured, and then did we try? Was it Rojo and Bailey and whoever, Lindelof? And we never actually managed to get it going again. You never got that midfield free again. You never got the right blend in midfield. And midfield is so important. It's so important. It's why we got it right last season, I thought. Eriksen, Casemiro and Bruno worked until it didn't, right? Because the likes of Brighton and Manchester City absolutely ran through that midfield. But that midfield was a good midfield for when we were going to play teams that we were expected to pass the ball around and dominate possession a little bit. So maybe we needed a card in our pocket, which was a plan B. And maybe that plan B might have been a bit more of an aggressive 6 alongside a Casemiro. And maybe we sacrifice a little bit of our in-possession play for someone that's going to be a bit more of a defensive asset. So the reason I still back Ten Hag is a little bit like Ole. What we saw there, I seen strategy and I saw what was capable. And then you take away the key ingredients for that, your players. Like, you take key players out of a football team and you just simply cannot play the same way unless you're able to replace that player. It's simple as. And for everyone goes, well, a good coach should cope. Okay, cool. I would say it's common consensus at the moment. I don't necessarily agree with it. That Pep Guardiola is probably the number one coach in the world at the moment. Well, he can't cope when he loses one fucking player in Rodri. BM says footballers are fickle and need a charismatic, almost father figure manager. Someone you run through walls for. Is Ten Hag the man for this? I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't necessarily agree with that. Players need that. When you speak to good players, and maybe this is the key, maybe we don't have enough genuinely good players, top players. When you speak to, do you think Roy Keane needed someone to motivate him? I think David Beckham needed somebody to motivate him. Has everyone watched fucking Any Given Sunday and just decided that speech is what managers do? And that's what managers are supposed to do. I entirely disagree. A manager's job is to create an environment where success happens. And when you've got, it's competitive, so every other team in the league is trying to create an environment where success happens. You're going to have a game plan, and it's on the manager to select a game plan that the team can play. There's all right. Example, Vincent Kompany is trying to play a Pep Guardiola game plan with a team that isn't of a sufficient quality to execute that game plan in this league. They were perfectly capable of executing that game plan in the Championship last year, played some sensational football. And my whole point in the summer that when we were talking about this is he going to be able to transfer that over, or is he going to have to change the way he plays? Because it's all right dominating the ball with good Championship players in the Championship, but those good Championship players are going to be 90% of your team probably when you come up to the Premier League, and they're still Championship players. Everybody in the Premier League can do that, But Manchester City, etc., can do that a lot fucking better than you can do that. So you have to be able to select a game plan that your team can execute, because you can have the perfect game plan. I could go and take the 1999 Manchester United game plan. I could go and get it off somebody that played in that team, and like Wes Brown or something. I could go and fucking say, right, give me every single fucking bit of what this game plan was, and then I can go and give it to Paddock FC playing at level 13 of English football. Do you think they'll play like Manchester United? They probably fucking won't, right? No, you have to be able to find the game plan that the lads can execute. You have to be able to then deliver training sessions which build upon that. You have to be able to then select the players that can execute the game plan the best, and that doesn't necessarily mean the best players. A situation that I'm involved with at the moment at the club is I've got 4 fucking great wingers, only 2 at a time play. Some 2 miss out every single fucking week. It's not necessarily fair, and those 4 are probably in the upper echelon, upper third of the entire squad. But only 2 of them get to play at once. You know, I have weaknesses in other positions where I have to make do a little bit. That's just the nature of the game. You know, I have to pick what I think he's going to execute best, and sometimes I'll get it wrong. And obviously, I don't have the same fucking scrutiny on me as Ten Hag does, for obvious reasons. Just trying to catch the chat up a little bit. Would I take Phillips in Jan or in the summer if Casemiro leaves? I really, really, really don't know. On one hand, I think, yeah, he is kind of what we need. But on the other hand, like, he just doesn't fucking play. I don't know. Dormant says, any hint for the player who I showed Rio a text from on Vibe with 5 who isn't interested in us? No, there's a reason I didn't put it out publicly. Stefano says, anyone think they're just keeping Ten Hag until INEOS comes in and picks their own man? I think there's a very real possibility of that. And I think that the inaction is actually action, if that makes sense. I think that the decision, the no decision is a decision. It makes sense at some point in my own head. I think, yeah, there's a very real possibility that what you're seeing is INEOS is getting all of their men in place, and then they will evaluate what's going on with Ten Hag. And to be fair, they should. They should get their football people in place. They should just let what's going on the field happen on the field now, because there's no point changing it when you don't have all of the information. They need to do a bit of fact-finding. They need to say, right, what is this squad's actual capability? And be honest with themselves. Don't just get a new guy in because he's your guy. But be honest and ruthless and say, okay, with the 11 that's taken to the field, should we be expecting better results or better performance than we're seeing now? If we're seeing better performance out of this 11, or we're not seeing good performance out of this 11, can we identify why? And if you see Erik Ten Hag as a choke point in that, and you think you can upgrade that, then yeah, I would support that decision. But I think you've got to go and find the facts first. I think you've got to analyse, maybe you have to analyse every single game of this season individually and then as a whole. Maybe you have to do that. Maybe that's how deep you have to go into it. Maybe you have to look at the availabilities that were there for each squad. Maybe you have to find out, well, you played Bruno in this game and he was shite. Was he fit? Or you played this guy in this game, was he fit? If you can get to the truth of all of that, then you can make an educated opinion and an informed opinion, and then you can make an informed decision. But I think if you just come in looking from the outside and go, fuck him off and bring whoever in, I don't think that's fair. I think you should do some due diligence and actually look into what has caused some of the issues. And then maybe even be honest and say, has this fucking prolonged takeover bullshit had any impact on the certainty of our coaching staff? Our coaching staff coming in, looking over the shoulder because there's this takeover thing happening. Has that negatively impacted the team? I'm not excusing any of the results or the performances. I'm just saying, what are the mitigating factors? And for someone that's supposedly as detail-orientated as Dave Brailsford is, that's what I would expect them to do. You know, and sometimes it might be a case of, do you know what? We're happy with these 3 aspects that Ten Hag does, but we're not happy with these 3 aspects of what Ten Hag does. And then you sit down with him and say, and you tell him, and you say, I like this that you do, but I don't like this that you do. Is there any way we can support you to get these 3 things better? Or would you like to palm off those responsibilities to somebody else? And be fucking adult and honest with each other. And he might go, do you know what? Yeah, maybe my scouting isn't up to scratch. Can I just focus on getting the tactics onto the players and not watching tape of fucking 16-year-old Brazilians? And they might say, yeah, cool, okay, we think Paul Mitchell would be better at doing that. And he might go, yeah, I've heard a lot about him. Let me meet him. That is how you fucking operate at the top end, in my opinion, is you fucking work with what you've got until there's an obvious upgrade to be had, and then you make that obvious upgrade. That's my opinion. Just trying to get some more chats. BM says 4 of Liverpool's start 11 are captains of their country. Robertson, Van Dijk, Slobsly, Salah. Some small nations, but still it helps. How many do we have? Is Scott McTominay captain? No, he's not. Obviously, it's Robertson, isn't he? I think he's wore the armband, though, hasn't he? Gur Cahill says, spent billions, changed managers, and regarded last season a successful year. Can you see where you're going wrong here? Did I regard it as successful, or did I regard it as progress? Because there is a massive difference. Successful Manchester United is winning the league and the Champions League. Progress is different. Nico says, how do we get our wingers to track the fullbacks, a la Becks and Giggs? You just fucking tell them to track them. It's as simple as that. Mohawi says, why wouldn't we let Kobe play instead of McTominay? I really think that McTominay is a stacker. Stacker? You mean a striker? He's not a striker, but it's one of those. Coutinho says, Ten Hag is finding out he has to do more admin work and meetings at the club dealing with club issues because staff bring it to his attention because they don't trust the structure to sort it out. Yeah. I agree with that, yeah. Yeah, I do agree with that. Stefano says, thoughts on Ten Hag's training? His pre-season got a lot of players injured. The video yesterday looked lackluster and his shooting drills before the games are woeful. Right. Did his pre-season get a lot of players injured? Or are you just going to ignore the fact that every other club is dealing with like double-figure level of injuries? How much of the pre-season, I mean, and what got them injured? Was it what they were doing on the training pitch, or was it like interrupted sleep, time zones, and all that sort of shit? Because how many times have we all said it on the podcast? It was fucking brutal going on the body, and we weren't running about. So I can't imagine having to play and do pre-season on top. I mean, we were doing a bit of drinking, man, but I can't imagine having to do pre-season level fucking training on top of like a new bed every night and all the rest of that sort of shit. So, no, I'm not sure I'm having that. The video yesterday looked lackluster. It did, right? And I've got thoughts on that. And the shooting drills for a game are woeful. Yes. Now, the shooting drills, do I put that on Ten Hag? I sort of do, yeah. Ultimately, it's his responsibility. He's not out there, though. He's not out there when we're doing those drills. It's usually Steve McLaren, Mitchell van der Gaag, and the others. Weirdly, don't see Ben McCarthy out there when we're doing that, which I think is a bit mad considering he's the striking coach. Why not? What was the other part? The video yesterday looked lackluster. Yeah, so on the video yesterday, if I put a session on and I explain the session properly and the lads toss it off, whose fault is that? Is that mine or the lads? Because I'm trying to think where I said this yesterday, but I put it in one of the group chats. So we do the same warm-up routine. Every single match, we do the same warm-up routine, and the last thing that we do is a possession box. And the possession box is the attack versus the midfield with a fullback each. So one fullback goes with the attack, one fullback goes with the midfield. So it's 4v4, and then the two centre-halves are at the end. And the reason we want the two centre-halves at the end is because they can dictate what goes on. They can communicate, and they are quite often a bit of a bounce pass, or they take possession and they move it backwards. And it kind of replicates what happens in a game, because when you're in possession, the centre-half has got the entire game in front of him, and rarely do they have to have like 360 vision going on. And for me, it replicates what they do in a game. Everybody else needs 360 going on. And there's a few things I'm looking for when we do that possession drill. I'm looking for talk. I'm looking for physicality. I want the lads to be rough with each other. I want people getting hips and shoulders in, because this is the last action before we go and play a game. So I want us being physical, being aggressive with each other. The talk is so important, and I'll explain what I mean by talk, because it's not just fucking gobbing off for no reason. I like it when my players tell who they're passing it to the next pass. So if it's at United, say, and it's Maguire passes it into midfield, he might say Wan-Bissaka as he's passing it, because then that guy who's receiving the ball might know he's already seen that pass is on for me, and then I don't have to think, and I can one-time pass it out to him. So I like that level of detail. Or I might say turn, or I might say bounce. There's a lot of detail that you can give to someone that you're playing a ball to, and that's the sort of talk that I want. I don't just want people screaming press, pass, yeah. Like, yeah, what is yeah? Like, that's fucking nonsense. And if someone does shout for the ball, I want them to check the shoulder, orientate the body to receive it on the back foot so they can move it forward, or protect the ball with it, with the way Scott McTominay didn't do, receiving the ball from Bruno. There's so much that you can get into that little fucking drill. And we do that drill every single match day before we play. It's the last drill we do before we play. And I can tell if that drill is flat, we're going to struggle to start. And if that drill's on it, we always start fantastically. Now, I don't do anything different. It's on the lads. So where do you put the responsibility of the lads taking ownership of that? I can't make one of the lads pass it better in that drill. Not in that one drill. And people will say it was a 15-minute warm-up. Okay, cool. But I've seen what the top players do when they do it. And I've seen how Manchester United do it. And there's a difference. That I saw yesterday, I think it was Andy Mitten's video, was fucking abysmal. It was 3 passes before they lost possession by a sloppy pass going to nobody, which is unacceptable. How are you just passing it to fucking no one? There's 4 or 5 of you in this little square. You can see the passes that are on. It's poor quality. And I'm wondering who in that team is going, oi, that's not fucking good enough. Find the fucking man. You got Bayern Munich tomorrow. You think you can just fucking sloppy pass it around and not watch Harry Kane drill one into the top fucking corner? That's what they need in that fucking team, is someone that goes, oi, lads, nah. They're all fucking laughing and joking. And there is a time for laughing and joking, and you don't want training to be completely serious all the time. I think some of our best training sessions are when there is laughing and joking, but it has to come with a level of standard. You are a professional athlete, and I expect there to be high standards. I'd love to know what it looked like when Roy Keane and Paul Scholes was in those boxes, because I imagine they went on for hours, because they had the fundamentals right, and they weren't making a bad fucking pass in those. And then you just see this bullshit from yesterday. David says, the problem's bigger than just one man in Ten Hag state. Yeah, I completely agree with that. John says, the communication on the pitch for United isn't good enough. Fact. Ben says, never on the manager if the drill is flat. Luke says, sign better passers. He's had 400 million. Okay, so what? He got Eriksen in for free, who's one of the best passers. He's not available. Abhishek says, do I think Mount coming back makes our midfield look better? It doesn't hurt, I don't think. Life O'Reilly says, the training videos on the players, it's their responsibility to apply themselves. Yep, that's what I'm thinking. Brian says, don't understand fans wanting Ten Hag to be sacked. If nothing it changes nothing. Pep took 2 or 3 years in a settled club. Took Klopp 5. Ten Hag needs time. You don't get overnight success. Change upstairs first. Hostad says, Steve, where do we rank on defending and attacking corners? We seem to be poor at both, don't we? I don't know, actually. But fuck me. I don't think I've seen us deliver a fucking corner that didn't hit the first man since the fucking 26th of May 1999. It's fucking wank, innit? Like, I was with Jaden at the game the other day, and we got a corner. Jaden's clapping and going, come on. And I'm like, I can't get excited when we get a corner because we're fucking wank at corners. And then Bosch, first man. Fuck's sake. James says pretty much every squad player wouldn't get half the wages they're on at any other football club. That's the fucking problem. They think they're better than everyone because they get paid more. Probably right. Kaiser said, Ten Hag said it himself, his focus is on establishing standards. How many Matic interviews do we need before we understand how bad the player culture is at the club? Ten Hag rewards discipline. That's a good point. Jeffrey says, am I having Jadon Sancho back under what circumstances? Yeah, I could see a way coming back for him. I don't think it'll happen. I think he's 99% dusted. Can I show the rondos at Ajax? Yeah, someone posted that video yesterday alongside ours. It was fucking way better. Anyway, so what was the question beforehand? Jadon Sancho. Right. I think he's 99% going to leave because I don't think he's going to apologise for whatever reason. But I would say, yeah, if you apologise to the squad, apply yourself in training, are not late for at least a fucking month, 6 weeks, 2 months, go and absolutely ras it up in the under-21s because I think you can still have a couple of overage players in there. Go and show me in the 21s, put in an undeniable performance for a couple of games to get your match fitness back, and you'll be back in the squad. That would be it. That should be it. Darren Cox says, do we have a set-piece coach? Yes, Eric Ramsey. Reese says, could we see a breakdown comparing Ajax and us, what we could do better and etc.? Well, he's basically said he hasn't got the players available to do that, which is disappointing because he's literally signed some of those players. Mayowa says, our United players are terrible passers. They run with the ball along with the markers towards whoever they want to pass the ball to and give a short pass. How is that not criminal? Eugene says, just saying Greenwood would thrive under Ten Hag. Really hope he turned himself around. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's gone. I saw something that said Getafe are looking to sign him in the summer, and I think that's probably going to happen in all honesty. Jake says we don't want Sancho back. You're probably right in the grand scheme of things. But someone asked what would be the way back for him, so that would be my way back for him. Crunch Time says, one thing I noticed in the Bournemouth game was that our overall set-piece delivery is just not good enough. Yes. AJ says, I was at OT on Sancho's first game back. The fans were chanting for him. We loved him. The manager backed him last season on his break. Everyone backed him, and he snaked us. There's no way back for him. James says, replace all players bar the youth, pre-Ten Hag, open heart surgery. Well, that's it. It'd be interesting to see if Dave Brailsford, etc., have reached out to Ralph Rangnick, offered him a big fat 7-figure check and said, can you come and fucking give us a consultation on what surgery is required? No, he came and he left a bit on the club, and ultimately the higher-ups at the club that were there at the time weren't going to have that. But this is a fresh start. Get that guy in. He spent 6 months there, knows exactly what's up, what needs to change, and he's a fucking top guy at building clubs. Get him in, pay him handsomely, and listen to him and see what happens. That's what I reckon, at least, anyways. Does Varane need to apologise? I don't know what's going on with Varane. No one's fucking speaking. Like, I have no idea what's happened with Varane. Darren says, there are elements of Ajax play coming in at United. Maguire sometimes continues into attack and finds himself in the forward line. Trouble is, United and Maguire aren't great at exploiting this. I have noticed that he seems to go for a bit of an adventure on the right wing a couple of times. That might be an attempt to overload. Why Maguire, though, who delays his passes so much and not someone that's a faster passer, or someone that's actually better suited to recovery as well? I'm not sure, but I have noticed it. And I wonder if it is orders. I wonder if it is orders. Or if it's just Maguire going on an adventure. I don't know. Eugene says, question, would these players have thrived or done better if better structures were in place? You can't necessarily say that these players would have done, but the better structure is always the move. Always go for infrastructure first, in every sense. Everything else is just that fucking Instagram fucking bullshit, yeah? Always go for the boring, the mundane infrastructure, always. That's what wins. Anyways, I'm going to wrap it up. Ghosty says Onana messed the whole defence up. I can't abide by that, to be honest. I don't think that's the case. Anyways, I'm going to wrap it up. Cheers for tuning in. I would say enjoy the game tonight. I don't think you're going to, though. But I'll see you after it either way. Laters. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.